They always tell you the truth will surface eventually. They never tell you what it looks like when it finally claws its way out. When 23,000 pages of Epstein emails spilled into daylight, no one was prepared for what was inside. Not the networks, not the strategists, and definitely not the people whose names appeared again and again in places they hoped you would never look. One name stood out, not once, not twice, dozens of times. Trump. The emails show far more proximity than anyone in power wanted the public to notice. Back when the world was told they were barely acquaintances, the archive tells a different story. Epstein referencing him in messages to associates, Epstein looping him into travel chatter, Epstein bragging about access, Epstein suggesting meetings, Epstein describing him as someone he had a long history with. It is all there, typed in plain text by a man who built his life on leverage. And the part they really hoped you never remembered is simple. After the 2016 election, after the cameras stopped rolling and the victory glow settled in, Trump hosted Thanksgiving dinner at the White House. And one of the people seated at that table was Jeffrey Epstein. That detail has been buried under a mountain of distractions, but it sits inside the emails and the surrounding communications like a match waiting for a spark. Once you see it, everything else in the archive becomes harder to ignore. There are messages where Epstein speaks casually about conversations with Trump, as if they were more than passing acquaintances. Messages hinting at introductions to people inside Trump's orbit. Mentions of requests and favors that never appeared on any public calendar. Notes suggesting certain topics should be discussed in person rather than over email. It paints the picture of a relationship that went far beyond polite nods at social events. Then you notice something else. The scramble. The moment investigators started circling, certain names inside the emails triggered panic behind the scenes. People inside Trump's circle began pushing narratives about distance. People around the FBI began limiting public access to related documents. And one name kept appearing in conversations about shutting the story down. Kash Patel. The emails do not mention him directly, but what happened after the leak began circulating is what makes his involvement impossible to ignore. Patel, one of Trump's closest loyalists and gatekeepers, started working around the edges of the investigation. Not to expose, to control. Interviews, statements, strategic denials, quiet pressure. He positioned himself exactly where damage control becomes influence. And by the time the pressure reached its peak, files began disappearing from public portals, inquiries were redirected, and requests for full transparency were stalled. The archive also hints at buried communications between Epstein's circle and people inside federal structures. Mentions of intelligence contacts, notes about protection, warnings about potential exposure. None of this proves a coordinated cover-up by itself, but when you add the timing, the alliances, and the silence, the pattern becomes hard to ignore. Now look at the pieces together. Epstein talking about Trump repeatedly in private messages. A Thanksgiving dinner that was never meant to be public knowledge. A presidency stepping into global power while trying to distance itself from a man who knew far too much. And an inner circle working overtime to bury anything that could tie the two together. Some emails hint at larger operations, not just networking or favors, but leverage. Leverage over people who later shape policy. Leverage over individuals whose careers depended on staying clear of scandal. Leverage that now sits in 23,000 pages of archived text, threatening to spill into public consciousness. One section of the emails hints at gatherings attended by political and business elites, including references that match known events Trump attended. The wording is vague, but the context is unmistakable. Epstein was not bragging, he was documenting. He kept receipts because receipts were power. The archive also includes notes about media figures who agreed to push certain narratives, messages about reporters who became cooperative after private conversations, and emails describing how unwanted stories were killed before they could reach air. When you combine that with the silence surrounding the Thanksgiving dinner, you begin to understand how much of this story was shaped long before anyone saw the documents. The timing makes everything even more volatile. This leak happens during rising distrust in institutions, collapsing confidence in government, and an election cycle wrapped in chaos. So what happens when the public starts asking why a sitting president's name appears repeatedly in emails tied to one of the most notorious criminals of the century? What happens when people realize investigators hesitated? Not because there was nothing there, but because there was too much. Whispers from inside the legal system say more pages exist, pages never released, pages that mention private flights, pages that mention meetings at properties now blocked off from public view, pages that reference payments routed through shell entities, and pages that reference photographs stored in offshore servers. If those surface, everything changes. Some analysts say indictments will never touch the top levels. Others think someone inside the machine might finally snap. But deeper sources believe the most dangerous scenario is already in motion. Not a political collapse, not a media scandal, a loyalty fracture. When people inside a circle fear exposure more than they fear disobedience, alliances break, back channels freeze, and the truth slips through whether anyone wants it to or not. Right now, the people connected to these emails are preparing. They are building narratives, arranging interviews, creating smokescreens, and hoping the public remains distracted. But the 23,000 pages are not going away. They exist. They are circulating. They are being dissected by people who do not owe loyalty to anyone in office. The reality is simple. Epstein controlled leverage. And leverage is the one thing powerful people fear. Not because it exposes what they did, but because it exposes who they are. This isn't about one man. It never was. It is about the structure behind him, and the names inside the archive prove that structure reaches farther than anyone expected. So here we stand, watching the cracks widen, watching the truth push through, watching a story they tried to bury rise back into the spotlight. You be the judge. If you're awake, you already know what to do. Hit the link in our bio and subscribe to our free underground newsletter.